Welcome to this core skills lecture on grammar. We're going to look at noun versus nouns. This is such a big problem in people's writing, and it's a critical problem. You need to fix it. You need to get this right. If you want to boost your IELTS writing scores and speaking scores, or PTE writing or speaking scores, you need to get this right. First things first, I want to give you a task. I want you to count the nouns. Just count them. How many do you see? Remember, a noun is a thing. So count the things that you see here. Let me disappear. How many things do you see? I'll give you a couple of minutes. Good. Amit's got one. Should be a few more than that. Number of nouns here. Sumitra's got 8. It's more than that. Chirag's got 12. It's more than that. Naresh has found one. Hierarchies. Good. Tayyab's got 15. It's more than that. Just count them. I just want you to count them. How many nouns, how many things can you see? Prudvi's got 19. Very close. Well done. Amit's got 15. It's more than that. Sujaya's got 20, and that's on the money. Well done. Let's take a look. The number is, in fact, 20, right? Let's see them all. Well, we've got job, order, day, information, connections, future, insights, knowledge, hierarchies, mechanisms, hierarchy, person, brain, signals, rank, task, work, research, neuroscience, and intelligence, right? 20 all up. These are the things in the paragraph here. The things, not the do words, not the prepositions, not the pronouns, but all of the things, all of the nouns. Nouns are things. Cool. Now, there's an essential rule in English that says one thing, two things, 142 things. In other words, in English, you must distinguish between one and more than one. You have to distinguish between one and more than one. Maybe you don't do this in your language. Maybe everything is singular. Maybe everything is just one. Or maybe you have one, two, or more than one, or something like that. Every language is different. But in English, we care about one thing and more than one thing. And you need to express that by putting an S on the end of the word. 1 day, 2 days, 142 days. One thing, more than one things with the S. Critical rule. So many times it is broken in English. So now I want you to count the single nouns, okay? So here are the 20 nouns. Tell me how many of them are single, one. How many refer to one thing? Naresh says 14. Sujaya says 15. Kodamanchili says 14. Prudvi 15. Amit 14. Anu 15. T says 16. Shanmugathan says 10. Tayyab 12. Guraj 10, Bharat 13, Amit 14, Jagath 11, Sylvia 15. Good. All right. We've got some correct ones. Excellent. The number is 15. There are 15 singular, one that refer to one thing. These nouns that you can see on the screen, like job, day, information, future, knowledge, hierarchy, person, rank, work, task, research, neuroscience, intelligence, are referring to one thing. Some of them are easy to conceptualize, to think about, like one person. That's very clear. One person. You can see the person. It's just one, right? But something like intelligence is also considered singular or one, even though intelligence, you can't really see it or conceptualize it, but it's still considered one or singular or single, right? Cool. Now, let's count the noun plus S. I want you to look at the paragraph, find all of the nouns that are plural nouns with an S on the end. Cool? Let's do this one. Cool. Right. Got it. And while I was looking, someone asked a really, really good question. So before we look at the answer to this, somebody said, why is it that future here is a noun, but here it's not a noun? Great question. Here it's the future. It's a thing. Here it's future research. So in fact, future here is acting as an adjective and not a noun. So look, thank you for asking that. It's a great question. Here it's a noun. Here it's playing a different role. It's adding information to the noun research. Therefore, it's actually an adjective. Good question. Cool. How many plural nouns could you see? Well, 20 minus 15 we found out before. So there were 5. But how can we tell if a noun is singular or plural? Well, let's have a closer look at words like connections, insights, hierarchies, mechanisms, signals, right? You add, very simply, you add an S onto the end of the noun to indicate to the reader or the listener that you're referring to more than one thing. Connections, insights, hierarchies, more than one, mechanisms. You need to get that s right when you speak, because when you do it incorrectly, it hurts. It hurts the native speaker who listens to you speak English and you miss that S and it hurts. It's uncomfortable. Conversely, when you get it right, when you say hierarchies, it sounds beautiful. You have to do it. Cool. But some other words also have an S on the end. Are these also nouns? Good question. Let's look at this. So in English, we add S to nouns to indicate more than one. But we also add S to some verbs. Look at these two sentences. Professor Peterson teaches at MIT. His students are incredibly smart. So sometimes this is confusing because we add S to the verb. Sometimes it's not a noun, it's a verb. And sometimes we add S to the noun. These are two completely separate rules, okay? It's just by coincidence that we do put the S on the verb and the S on the noun. They have nothing to do with each other, okay? Professor Peterson teaches, not teach at MIT. That's the verb rule. That's different. Forget that. Here we're looking at the nouns. His students. Student is a noun. We've put S on the end because we're referring to more than one. So that's a point of confusion. I hope that's now clear. This has been covered in a different lecture that you can watch up there. Cool. Let's just make this very clear. I want you to look at the paragraph and find the verb plus S, not the nouns. I want you to find the verb S. Verb S. Find the verb S. Here we go. I'll give you a hint. There are 3. What are the 3 verb plus S? Good. Ashu's got the first one. Makes. Not. Yes. Decisions. Is that a verb? Do you decision? No, you decide. Understands. Good. Excellent. Good. Understands. Makes. And what's the last one? Not actions. You can action something sometimes, but usually it's a noun. Let's have a look here. Makes, understands, decides. These aren't nouns. These aren't nouns. They're verbs. Yes, they have an S on the end. They're not nouns. They're verbs. A tiny virus makes. The team understands. A particular virus decides. Separate rule, let's forget it. Let's go back to the nouns now. I want you to find the nouns, plural nouns, noun plus S in these paragraphs. Here are the verbs. Don't mix up the verbs now. Look for the nouns, please. Treatment Mayor is a noun. Hundreds, says Prudvi. Decision, says Anu. Human, says Sylvia. Scientist, says Kodamanchili. Ramesh says humans, decisions, hundreds. Mahesh says treatments. Yes, looking good, looking good. Ooh, virus or viruses. That's a singular noun, Ashu. We want the plural nouns. Diseases, actions. Yes, excellent, excellent, excellent. Good stuff. Good stuff, good stuff. So Sumitra's counted 10. Let's have a look. What are the plural nouns here? Well, we've got humans, hundreds, decisions, decisions, scientists, treatments, diseases, and actions. Excellent. And although there are some verbs with an S, they're very different. We're just looking at the nouns here. Cool. Well done. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plural nouns in that paragraph. So is it a big deal? I mean, how important is it that you have to put an S on the end of the noun if it's plural? Is it really that much of a big deal? This is a depressed teacher. Let me tell you a little story. Jamal, who works at e2language.com, who's our IELTS specialist, she took the IELTS academic just to get a good experience of taking the test, and I took it with her, and she said that in one of the questions in listening or reading, I forget which one, she had finished, right? And so she's sitting there and she looked across at the girl sitting next to her, and the answer was hospitals, plural, hospitals. That was the answer. And Jamal looked and she noticed, not cheating, of course, she noticed that the girl had written hospital, singular. So she would have gotten it wrong. But yes, it's important for your test, IELTS, PTE, OET, TOEFL, very important. But it's much, much more than that. It's the difference between sounding like a native speaker and sounding like you don't speak English precisely. It's a matter of precision. It's a small thing to get right, which makes a massive difference, right? Cool. Let me read you this. This is incorrect. And this is what bad English sounds like. Human make 100 of decision every day, and we're not alone. Even a tiny virus makes decision. Scientists are researching how they do so to help lead to better treatment for some disease. The team understands how a particular virus decides what action to take in its host. Sounds wrong. The difference is huge. Cool. Now, fix the sentences, please. I want you to add an S to the plural nouns. Add an S to the nouns that are representing more than one thing. Let me disappear. So please write. You don't need to write the whole paragraph. Just write add the S to the nouns that need it. Yes, Sumitra, host is a noun, but it was a singular noun. Good. Humans. Good. Hundreds. Yes. Good, Sylvia. Good, Prudvi. Decisions. Yes, we make decisions. More than one. Scientists. More than one. Treatments. More than one. Correct. Well done, Anu. Good, Anup. Rami. Scientists. Plural. Chirag. Diseases. Excellent. More than one. Good, 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 good. Viruses. Actions. Cool. Good stuff. Well done. Let me pop back in. Here we go. So here is the correct paragraph. Humans make hundreds of decisions every day, and we're not alone. Even a tiny virus makes decisions. Scientists are researching how they do so to help lead to better treatments for some diseases. The team understands, well, these are the verbs, makes, understands how a particular virus decides what action. Here, this is an interesting one. What action to take in its host or what actions to take in its host. Sometimes it can be singular or it can be plural. It depends on the context of the sentence. That leads us to a question that some nouns cannot take an S, right? In other words, some nouns in English or in the world, you cannot pluralize. You cannot put an S on those nouns. Why is that? Some nouns you cannot count. You cannot count them. And therefore, you cannot add S to show more than one. If you can't count it, you can't pluralize it. If you can't count it, you cannot put an S on the end. So for this one, dirts or dirt. Can you count this? I mean, this is one clump of dirt that we can we say this man is holding dirts? Dirt or dirts? What do you think? Type it into the chat. Good. Yes. Yes. 10 points, everybody. Dirt. Because we think about it. We conceptualize it as one thing. We can't count this. Too much, too little, too dirty. It's dirt. What about this one? Mud or muds? Mud. You can't count this stuff here. It's not in pieces. It's not they're not objects. It's big clumps of sticky stuff. You can't count it. So therefore you cannot put an S on the end. What about this one? Sand or sands? Can you count this stuff? I guess if you had a microscope, you could probably say 1, 2, 3 sands, but who carries around a microscope? When we look at this, in English at least, we say sand. He is holding sand, not sands, plural. In fact, we never say sands, plural, because we can't count this. What about butter? This is an interesting one. Can you please put some butters on my toast or butter on my toast? What do we say? Well, here we can count one block of butter, but do we ever say butters? Here, take this butters. Yeah, it's just wrong. You can't count it because it's like an oily, liquidy mass. It's not individual bits. We say butter. And lastly, this one is very confusing for people. Information or informations. This is always in the singular as information, never informations, right? That's interesting. So do I have to memorize every object in the world? Do I have to memorize butter? You can't do that one, but pens you can have computers, but you can't have sands. Do I have to memorize that? No. There's a bit of a rule here. There's a bit of a rule for when you cannot pluralize a noun, when you cannot put S on the end. You need to think about it like this. In the world around you, there are things and there is stuff. It's the difference between things and stuff. Things you can pluralize. You can put an S on the end. Stuff You cannot pluralize. You cannot put an S on the end because you cannot count stuff. But you can count things like knives. What's that? Compasses, yes? Pots. Walkie-talkies. Cups. Torches. Sleeping bags. Backpacks. Seats. Water bottles. Fine, you can pluralize it, you can count it, so yes, you can put an S on the end. Binoculars, sometimes because the word ends in an S, like binoculars or scissors, we don't put another S on the end. But you can count binoculars. You can have 3, but we say 3 pairs of binoculars. This is an exception. But everything else that you see here, you can count it. It's separate. It's an object. So we can pluralize it. We can put S on the end. Let's think about stuff. Stuff like sand, mud, butter, milk, snow, paper, money, water, blood, electricity. Can we say sands, butters, milks, snows? Not snows as a verb, snows as a noun. Papers, monies, waters, bloods, and electricities? No. You can't count this stuff. If you look at this stuff, it's stuff. It's stuff. It's not separate. The money, I guess you could say 1, 2, 3, but when we look at it, our brains conceptualize it, think about it as one mass of stuff, not separate things. So here's a little quiz. Look at this picture. Think about the nouns. I want you to point out, first of all, tell me what are the things that you can see? What are the things? What are the things that you can count? No, the things that you can count. Trees, good. Excellent. What else? Huts, there's a hut. Huts, houses, excellent. Clouds, excellent. We can have 1 cloud or 2 clouds. There's a lake. We can have 1 lake or 2 lakes. Excellent. There's a board. Good. Now, there's a mountain. Mountains. Fine. Now, look at it and think about the stuff that you can't count. Sand. Good. Water. Good. What else have we got? Air. Good. Grass. Excellent. Because we think about the stuff as we think about it as stuff. There you go. So we can't pluralize it. So let's look at this. So things you can count. 1 tree, 2 trees, 3 trees, 4 trees. Trees you can count. Cool. What about this hut? Well, 1 hut. You could have 2 huts, 3 huts. Fine. What about the chairs? 1 chair, 2 chairs, 3 chairs. Cool. Easy. What about the clouds? 1 cloud, 2 clouds, 3 clouds, 4 clouds. They're separate. We can count them. What about the things that we can't count? The stuff. Sand. It's just sand. Oh, look, there's some people. 1 person, 2 people. What about the water? Well, 1 water, 2 waters. No, you can't count that. Good. Let's do it with this one. First of all, please write down the things that you can count. The things that are separate and countable. What can you count here? Jars, good. Eggs. No, the things that you can count, not butter. You can't count. You can't say butters. Spoons, spatulas, flowers, as in the yellow flowers, good. Eggs, fine. Bags, cool. Bowls, excellent. Cool. Seeds, fantastic. What about the things that you cannot count here? So you cannot put an S on the end. Butter, milk. What else have we got? Flour, as in bread flour, not the pretty flowers, about the white flour. Rice, good. Cool. Grains, you can count grains. You can say grain or grains. That's fine. That's an interesting one, and I'll talk about that in a second, because sometimes you can say grain or grains. We'll get to that. All right, last one. This is a tricky one. So you can count the books, right? 1 book, 2 books, 3 books. What do you think is in here? What is something that you cannot count in this picture? You can say 1 shelf, 2 shelves, 1 library. Aha, Warowitz, well done. Information, good. So while there are 20,000 books, you can't say there are 20,000 informations. Why? Well, again, we just conceptualize information or knowledge. Good. Knowledge and information is something that is uncountable, inseparable. So we think about it as a single thing. Cool. Now, someone mentioned before about grain versus grains. Can a word be both singular and plural? Like, depending on context, can I say to the farmer, do you have any grain or do you have any grains? Well, they're both right. So yes. Sometimes it depends, again, how we're thinking, and it depends on the context of the sentence, right? Because you can think about paper as this big stack of inseparable, we think about it as a single thing, paper. But you can also think about papers like this, like exam papers, right? Somebody said before about, what about exam papers? Look, this is almost separate. They're almost single things. So you can say, oh, can you hand me 2 of those papers? That's fine. 1, 2. But here, if I said, can you hand me 2 of those papers? The person would go, huh? No. You would say something like, can I have 2 sheets of paper? So you have to add the what do you call it? A quantifier or something? Sheets of paper, loaves of bread, cups of tea, glasses of beer. That's why we have to use glasses, sheets, loaves as the thing that you count, but the stuff stays the same, right? Or beer versus beers. Can you get me 12 beers is fine. But here we're talking about I love beer as this thing, not countable thing, right? But if he's carrying beers in a glass, you say, can you get me 12 glasses of beer? That's fine. Also, you can just say, can you get me 12 beers? But he knows that you're thinking about beer inside a glass, right? So there's 2 different ways we can use it. Sometimes it's right for both, but it depends on the context. Same as sugar versus sugars. Do you want some sugar in your coffee? We say some sugar. We don't say, do you want some sugars in your coffee? If we're looking at this, if we're in a cafe and this is on the table and I say, do you want sugars? It's wrong. But if we're in a cafe and this is on the table and I say, do you want 2 sugars? That makes sense. Why? Because look at it. The cubes, we can conceptualize, think about them as individual things. In other words, these are things, this is stuff. For stuff, you cannot put the S. For things, you can put the S. Cool. Right. Now, I want you to fix the sentences. What I have done for you is I have labeled the verbs because I don't want you to change anything except for the nouns. I don't want you to add articles or change the verbs because you can do that and then make it singular and plural. No, what I want you to do is focus on the nouns and think about whether you can count them, whether you can't count them. Maybe you have to delete the S or maybe you have to add the S if you can count it or if you can't count it, okay? So go through, fix the nouns. That's it. Don't change anything else. Just fix the nouns. Good. Mayal's got one. Information. Sumitra's got one. Jobs, plural. Sujaya, information, singular. Excellent. Connections, says Christina. Fabulous. Knowledge, one. Yes. Signals, plural. Yes. Insights. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Knowledge. Mechanisms, plural. Information, singular. Hierarchies, plural. Mechanisms, plural. Ranks, plural. Intelligence, singular. Research, singular. Good. Excellent. All right, let's stop there. Well done. Happy with that. That's good. Let's have a look. So let's get rid of the verbs. Let's just look at the nouns here. So these were fine. Job, when you want to start a single job. So that's fine. Don't worry about that. But informations, can't count it, no S. Information. Connections, you can. So here we need to add the S. Knowledge, no S. Hierarchies, needed to add IES. Why? It ended in a Y, so we need to change the spelling. That's another rule for another day. Here, this is interesting. This is one of those nouns that, like grain, it can be grain or it can be grains. Insight or insights. We think about this as one insight or as insights, more than one. So if you had insight, that's correct. If you had insights, that is also correct. That's fine. Mechanisms, signals, and here we have research is always singular. Okay, not researchers, the people, but research the thing. We never pluralize it. We never add S. And intelligence, sometimes in psychology they talk about multiple intelligences, but usually we use it as a singular noun, so no S. Cool. Here's the last thing that I want you to do, I think. Yes, I want you to fix the sentences. I want you to fix the nouns. Again, the verbs, don't change the verbs. Don't add articles. I just want you to look for those nouns first. I'm going to give you a few minutes to do this. Look for the nouns. Think to yourself, is it one? Is it more than one? Think to yourself, does it need an S? Can I count it or can't I count it? That's it. So a couple of minutes, take your time. I want you to get this one correct. Good, good, good. Years. Earthworks. Findings. Evidence, singular. Experts, plural. Deforestation, singular. Trees, plural. Centuries, plural. Discoveries. Excellent. Keep going. Artifacts. Villages. Well done, Christina. Geoglyphs. Even if you don't know what that word is, you still know that it must be plural. Geoglyphs. Good, Amit. Archaeologists. Morowitz chosen perhaps, but I don't think that's a noun. In fact, I know it's not a noun. Mahesh. Suggests seems to be a verb. Suggestion seems to be a noun. Ask yourself, is it a thing? Is it a thing? Suggest, is that a thing? No, that's a doing word. It must be a verb. Artifacts, reasons. What else can you find in there? Experts, enclosures, villages. Cool. All right, let's have a look. Well done. That's a good effort. Let's see. So what have we got? We've got years, because it's 2,000 years ago. It can't be 2,000 years ago. Whoa, that's a big mistake if you do that. Here, by ancient person, of course it's people, more than one people, built hundreds of large, mysterious earthworks. Findings by Brazilian experts provide new evidence, singular, never evidences, has to be singular. This is an odd one because you can't really count evidence. Doesn't make sense for how indigenous people lived in the Amazon before European people arrived in the region. Fine. The ditched enclosures were, this is plural, so this must be plural, concealed for centuries by trees. Modern deforestation, singular, has, modern deforestations have. You can see that this affects the verb, but here it must be singular, so this must be has. And here, 450 of these large geometrical geoglyphs. So even if you don't know what this word is, a geoglyph, I don't know what it is, but I do know that it must be plural for two reasons. Why? One, 450, and two, these geoglyphs. The function of these mysterious sites, plural, is still little understood. They are unlikely to be villages, since archaeologists recovered very few artifacts during excavation. That could be singular or plural. The layout doesn't suggest they were built for defensive reasons. It is thought they were used only sporadically, perhaps as ritual gathering places. Plural. Cool, well done. So remember, a noun is a thing. You should be able to identify nouns. If you look at a paragraph, ask yourself, what are the things? The things are the nouns. If you look around you now, cup, USB hard drive, things in the world. Sometimes they're not things you can touch, like knowledge or information, but it's still a thing, okay? So remember that nouns are things. And in English, you must distinguish between one and more than one. And we do that by adding an S. 1 day, 2 days, 142 days. In English, we add S to nouns, and also sometimes we do it to verbs. Don't be confused. Professor Peterson teaches, that's a verb at MIT. His students, that's a noun, a plural noun. It also has an S, but these are very different rules. Some nouns you cannot count, therefore you cannot add S to show more than one, like sand, butter, snow, blood, water, beer, etc. Sometimes you can, depending on the context. Thank you. I hope that was enjoyable. Not enjoyable. I hope you learned from that, and I hope you can apply that. You need to stop making those mistakes. I see them too often. When you're writing sentences, essays, whatever it is, think to yourself, is the noun single, one, or is it more than one? In which case, I must put an S on the end. Hopefully, I'll never see another problem again. Cool, let's go to Q&A. Let me just stop recording.